This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Yes, we are bringing you live coverage from Denver. Breaking with convention, war, peace, and the presidency. As the Democratic convention kicked off Monday night in the streets of Denver, anti-war protests continued with delegates celebrating inside the Pepsi Center. Anti-war protesters were pepper sprayed by police just blocks from the big show. We'll have more on this later in the broadcast. There was no mention of the protests or arrests from the podium inside the convention. Indeed, it's as though there are two different worlds here in Denver. That's also been true of the corporate media's coverage of the event, where little airtime has been devoted to the protests in the streets. While much of the media coverage surrounding the opening of the convention is focused on the drama unfolding over what Hillary Clinton's supporters will do on nomination night, the serious issues that loom over the election have taken a back seat. And while the Democrats are gathering under a massive banner proclaiming changes on the way, serious questions abound about some of the key issues that have brought protesters to Washington, to Denver. We sent Democracy Now! Correspondent Jeremy Scahill into the Pepsi Center to ask the questions the corporate media is failing to ask, from the war in Iraq and Obama's foreign policy team to impeachment and the death penalty.
Inside Denver's Pepsi Center, the $100 million show is underway. The fans are pumped up and are there to cheer on their team, or candidate to be exact. It's a surreal scene enhanced by a high-end multi-million-dollar sound and light system. At times it feels like an NBA basketball game, right down to the junk food stands lining the halls, where delegates, including some of the most powerful legislators in the country, devour hot dogs, nachos, and lemonade. But while the glitter and glam of the convention is beamed over the airwaves and onto television sets across the U.S. and the globe, many crucial issues go undiscussed. Among these are some of the foreign policies being embraced by the Democrats and their candidates, Barack Obama and Joe Biden, as part of the official platform. While Obama has campaigned on a pledge to end the Iraq War, an examination of his top foreign policy advisors is raising concern among some in the anti-war movement. That's because several of the key people who are advising Obama on foreign policy were at the center of some of the most violent actions of the Clinton administration in the 1990s. There are also several who promoted the myth that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Among the old guard Clinton-era players on Obama's foreign policy team are former Secretaries of State Madeleine Albright and Warren Christopher, former National Security Advisor Tony Lake, former Defense Secretary William Perry, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO General Wesley Clark, and former Assistant Secretary of State Susan Rice, not to mention Joe Biden, who was the chair of the powerful Senate Foreign Relations Committee when the Bush administration was pushing to invade Iraq. The hearings Biden's committee held ultimately helped the Bush administration push the invasion forward. As we arrived at the Pepsi Center, we chased down Senator Carl Levin, chair of the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee and a passionate supporter of Joe Biden.
Your response to the foreign policy team that Senator Obama is putting together, many of these people were considered hawkish Democrats during the 90s.
Hawkish Democrats during the 90s. I have a lot of confidence in Joe Biden. You're asking me about Obama's team or about Biden's team?
I'm asking about Obama's team.
I think he's got the people that he is comfortable with. I have no doubt that the people that he has support policies which are fundamentally different from the McCain policies. That's the question, is not precisely where on some imaginary continuum or other our candidate is. Barack Obama is night and day difference from where McCain is on foreign policy issues. And the main issue is, number one, will there be a timetable in Iraq, or will the open-ended commitment remain? Obama wants some kind of a timetable in Iraq. McCain says open-ended. He will not do anything other than to say it's going to be condition-based and so forth. So that is a huge contrast. Then you got the difference in terms of allies, the importance of allies. McCain has supported the Bush policies, which have been unilateral, which have been arrogant, which have been separate ourselves, call our other folks' names. You're either with us or you're with the terrorist kinds of rhetoric from Bush. McCain has supported the Bush policies. And Obama differed very strongly.
But in all fairness, Senator Biden played a major role in authorizing the invasion.
Yeah, but he also at that time tried to come up with an alternative which would have supported
He refused to call any dissenting opinions.
I've got to go.
Senator Levin refused to answer any more of our questions and walked off with Inside the Beltway journalist Joe Klein of Time magazine.
Hey, hi, Joe. How are you doing?
We headed into the Pepsi Center and ran into New York Congressman Charlie Rangel, who represents Harlem.
I put my bet on Obama and get us out of Iraq.
Well, Joe Biden, they're saying, is going to be the big foreign policy guy in the White House.
I've been around for 38 years in the Congress. Vice presidents never counted that much except Cheney.
So it doesn't concern you that some of these people were very belligerent on Iraq?
Okay. No. Biden knows he made a big mistake. He said it, and that's all I need. Let's get the hell on out.
The Democratic National Committee has been trying to tightly control the message emanating from the convention, sending out talking points to delegates and offering scripted responses to redirect certain questions from journalists. It was clear, even in talking to progressive Congress members, that promoting a message of unity was priority number one. That was the impression we got from talking to Wisconsin Democrat Tammy Baldwin, who represents the progressive city of Madison.
Conventions, after a hard-fought, long-fought primary, are about bringing all of us back together and a few more beyond that. We want to bring independents. There's certainly some Republicans that are fed up with this administration and ready to look at a candidate for change. We want to bring in new voters who've been alienated before and sat on the sidelines and say now is the opportunity. So I don't necessarily regard a bringing together of all of the diversity that the Democratic Party reflects, including a diversity of opinion on the war, as we know. I don't regard bringing everyone together as we march forward as a change in his personal position and commitment to get our troops redeployed out of Iraq as soon as he can safely do that as our new president.
But when several of you, I have to press you on this issue because of the district you represent, several of these people put forward the myth that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. Madeleine Albright, for instance, was a key player in the sanctions against Iraq, the sustained bombing campaign that Clinton launched against Iraq. It's not just that you're bringing together a variety or a diversity of opinion. The key players in the foreign policy team are the hawkish wing of the Democratic Party. What we're hearing from a lot of people is great concern about this foreign policy team, and that so many of them were a part of the myth laboratory that was created in the lead up to the invasion and occupation of Iraq. It's not just about bringing people together. These are people that were firmly in favor of the war and helping to push it.
Well, I think the myth laboratory really was the Bush administration. I think it was in the closest circles. Now, I don't have evidence because this has been the least transparent administration on, in my memory. But yet, I feel, even as somebody who opposed the war from the beginning, that I was misled, the stuff that I was shown. And I know that nobody had more access than the administration, that they were showing almost everyone this intelligence, if you will, that it seemed to be produced after incredible pressure to produce what the leaders wanted to hear. So I don't regard any of them, any of the Democrats who were more hawkish, if you will, as having a role in misinforming the public. They took things at face value. That said, I think that the hallmark of a strong leader like Senator Obama is going to be to say, I am firm on this. I'm bringing you in for your counsel. I will listen, but we are redeploying out of Iraq. And that's what I expect from him, and I think that will happen going forward.
Back outside the Pepsi Center, California Congresswoman Maxine Waters was arriving in time to hear Michelle Obama speak. Waters has been one of the most vocal congressional critics of the occupation of Iraq. She was also a backer of Hillary Clinton. Still, she expressed confidence in Obama's foreign policy vision.
After months of watching Barack Obama talk about what he cares about on foreign affairs, and then selecting Biden, who is very knowledgeable, I think there's enough pressure from the progressives and those of us who want out of this war and want to do things a little bit differently to have that happen. I think Barack Obama is committed to progressive change, and so we can't let anything get in the way of that. And I think Biden will jump on board and even promote our kind of issues in our own way rather than go off on his own perhaps sometimes.
But you don't see it as a sort of troubling development that many of these people are people that you've been hounding them for their positions.
Sure. I always worry when, I see leadership that's in disagreement with what I believe in, but I just believe we've got a new opportunity. We've got a new stab at this with this group. I really do believe that.
Back inside the Pepsi Center, Michelle Obama was delivering her address. After her speech, as we walked the hall,